get started. And for those who have missed the previous starting chapters, they can join like that. It was.
Yeah, actually ours was a fresh, totally new batch, Mataji. We finished Nectar of Instruction, and then we finished, we are about to finish Nectar of Devotion, and then we'll be finishing Ishopanishad. So ours is like a totally fresh batch, so we can continue, Mataji.
Okay.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna, is everybody able to see the screen?
Yes, Mataji.
Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mataji. Okay, so this is chapter 13. So we are going to today deal with the 5 potent forms of devotional service. So what are the 5 potent forms of devotional service? Main forms of devotional service are residing first, residing in Mathura, worshipping the deity of the Lord, reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, serving a devotee, and chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So all 5 are so potent that a small attachment to any one of these 5 items can arouse devotional ecstasy, means bhava bhakti, even in a neophyte. So even if you just practice one thing among these 5, even in a neophyte devotee, it can arouse bhava bhakti. Okay, so one thing, if we can just do very perfectly and sincerely, we are on our way to bhava bhakti. Okay, and before we deal about these 5 potent forms of devotional service, let us understand like what is the result that we get by doing. So we are saying that bhava bhakti, right? So what is bhava bhakti? So bhava bhakti is the first appearance of pure love for Krishna in the heart. Okay, it is the stage just before prema, pure love of God. Okay, so when someone practices devotion for a long time, the heart becomes purified. Then a deep spiritual emotion, love for Krishna, awakens. So after long practice of spirituality, your heart becomes purified after so much of chanting, reading, doing devotional service, and all this. Then you develop a deep spiritual emotion, love for Krishna. Okay, that first awakening of love is called bhava. So, this bhava means it's not an ordinary emotion, it is a spiritual feeling for Krishna. See, actually, there are 9 stages in devotion. What are they? Anybody wants to say the 9 stages in devotion?
Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam.
Mataji, no, not the different. No, I'm talking about stages of devotion, Mataji.
Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah, sorry.
This is Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti, Nishta, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhava, Prema. So these are the 9 stages of devotion. So Shraddha, first stage is Shraddha. Shraddha means what? Faith that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when you develop that Shraddha, faith that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, what do you do? You want to understand more about Krishna. So you come in Sadhu Sangha, second stage, Sadhu Sangha. So you come in association of devotees. So you start hearing, reading about Krishna, you start chanting in sadhu sangha. Next, bhajana kriya. Then you start doing devotional service. So you start doing sevas like book distribution, go seva, prasadam distribution, cooking for the deities, cooking for the devotees. So all this we start bhajana kriya. Then next stage is anartha nivritti. So all the impurities that are there in our heart, like kama, krodha, mada, matsarya, lobha, all these anarthas, they disappear. Anartha nivritti. So all the unwanted things disappear. Okay, that is called anartha nivritti stage. Then after all the impurities are gone from our heart, then we come to a stage called nishta. Nishta means what? Steadiness. Now nobody can shake us from Krishna bhakti. We are so what do you say, so firm in our bhakti that nobody can shake our faith in from Krishna. Okay, we have firm faith that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. Okay, so that is nishta. So we have that steadiness that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. Come what may, nobody can shake our faith from Krishna. So further doing devotional service, we develop ruchi. Ruchi means what? Taste. Taste for Krishna consciousness, taste for devotional service. So we get a taste. Okay. And then you see, once we get a taste, we feel like doing it, right? That is called, next stage is called asakti, deep attachment. So when we have a taste, we develop a deep attachment. So after we develop a deep attachment, the next stage is bhava. We develop a spiritual emotion. That is the first stage of love. I mean, like prema, after bhava comes prema, that is pure love. Bhava is the first stage of love, that initial love that develops, spiritual emotion that develops. So, bhava is the 8th stage, and prema is the last stage, that is pure love of God. So, when bhava, the symptom, what are the symptoms of bhava? So, Rupa Goswami, he lists 9 symptoms of bhava. Shanti means what? Tolerance. Avyartha kalatvam, not wasting time. So these are the symptoms of bhava bhakti. When you are in the stage of bhava bhakti, you have shanti, it means tolerance. Avyartha kalatvam, not wasting time. Virakti, you develop virakti. Virakti means what? Detachment from material enjoyment. Mana shunyata, you develop humility. Asha bandha, strong hope for Krishna's mercy. So you totally depend on Krishna's mercy. Samutkantha, eagerness to attain Krishna. Right? And Nama Gane Sada Ruchi, constant taste for chanting. See, now we don't have any taste for chanting. We look forward like when we will finish our 16 rounds and we'll just hang our beads back, be back there. But in the Bhava Bhakti stage, we have so much taste for chanting. Oh, my 16 rounds is over so soon. Let me do some more rounds. Why only 16 rounds? Let me do 64, or let me do more rounds of chanting. So you get a taste for chanting. You can't leave your chanting in the Bhava Bhakti stage. So asakti for Krishna's qualities and love for places like Vrindavan. So Bhava Bhakti is the first awakening of pure love for Krishna. It appears after purification of the heart. See, we keep on doing devotional service and then finally you get purified. So your heart gets purified. So you come to the stage of Shuddha Sattva, the mode of pure goodness. So you are above the 3 material modes. Even you are above goodness. So you are in pure goodness, Shuddha Sattva. So that stage, your heart gets purified. Okay, and then Bhava Bhakti comes, that first stage of pure love for Krishna. So you should not think these emotions are artificial or something imaginary or created. No, this is all real. So these emotions appear naturally when the heart becomes purified. So all these emotions can be seen in the Bhava Bhakti stage. After everything, all the impurities from your heart are gone, you get purified naturally, then all these emotions will be seen naturally. Okay, so this is Bhava Bhakti, one stage before Prema Bhakti. So now let's see each of the different forms of devotional service. So first is, you can see here, right? Deity serving. So in regards to deity worship, Rupa Goswami, he says in the purport, he quotes, so I'll just directly read the quote what Rupa Goswami says in the purport. He says, my dear friend, if you still have any desire to enjoy the company of your friends within this material world, then don't look upon the form of Krishna who is standing on the bank of Keshi Ghat. So Keshi Ghat is a bathing place in Vrindavan. Okay, so don't stand on the bank of Keshi Ghat. Okay, and there Krishna is known as Govinda. His eyes are very enchanting. He's playing upon his flute, and on his head there is a peacock feather, and his whole body is illuminated by the moonlight in the sky. So, this is exactly what Rupa Goswami is saying. Okay, so what does this verse say? It is giving us a warning. If you still want to stay attached to worldly friendships and pleasures, then don't look at Krishna. Why? Because once someone becomes deeply attracted to Krishna's beauty, their heart naturally turns away from ordinary worldly enjoyment. If you still want to be attached to your family members, your property, your wealth, all those things, name, fame, everything, then don't look at Krishna who is there on Keshi Ghat. That's what Rupa Goswami is saying. Because once you look at Krishna's beauty there, your heart naturally turns away from all these attachments, material attachments. Okay, so what does this mean? What is the deeper meaning of this verse? See, it means that seeing or worshipping Krishna's form awakens spiritual love. So when that love awakens, you're no more interested in material attractions. Okay, you're no more interested in the temporary material attractions. So the heart shifts from temporary relationships to eternal connection with Krishna. Okay, so you're no longer interested when you start looking at the beautiful form of Krishna. You're no more interested. You get attracted to Krishna himself. You're no longer interested in all these material desires, family, and all wealth or property or all these different kinds of attachments. Okay. So that is why we should do deity worship of Krishna at home. What happens when you do deity worship of Krishna at home? It's your whole family life is centered around spirituality. See, when all the family members come together to do deity worship, see, one is doing kartal, one is doing bhajan, one is preparing garland, like one of your child is preparing a garland, one is one child is playing kartal, and one is mother or father, they're doing the bhajan. So it's like the whole family is engaged, right? This Krishna becomes the center of the family. Okay, when the deity is there, the whole family gets focused around Krishna. So Krishna is the center of our family. And what happens when you do deity worship? Second point is develop devotion through daily worship. So you're daily worshipping Krishna. So obviously you'll develop devotion for Krishna, right? When you worship Krishna daily, so you develop devotion to Krishna, smaran of Krishna, right? And third point, it reduces attraction to unhealthy habits, right? Instead of spending time in all unnecessary activities, the home becomes a small temple where everyone can remember Krishna together. So that half an hour or 1 hour that you are doing the deity worship, the whole family can utilize it. Instead of doing some other unwanted activities, they can do a good thing like deity worship at home. Okay, they can focus on deity worship, so which is very good. Instead of wasting time on unwanted activities, they can center their life around deity worship. Okay, and in our dharma, the deity is not viewed as, because if you see in America, they say you worship statues or idols. But in our dharma, the deity is not viewed as a statue or an idol. So devotees understand that Krishna kindly appears in a visible form. See, because we can't see the transcendental form of Krishna, right? We don't have those eyes to see Krishna. We have material eyes. So Krishna is so merciful that he comes in the form of deity, Archamurti, so that we can worship him, so that we can see him, so that we can serve him, so that we can remember him, so that we can develop love for him. Okay, so he comes in the deity form, Archamurti form. Okay, so when the heart becomes attracted to Krishna, what happens? Worldly attractions naturally fade. Okay, when you get attracted to the beauty of Krishna, all other things, all other worldly attractions, material distractions, everything, they just go away. Okay, so this indifference to worldly enjoyment is a symptom that the devotee is progressing towards bhava. So the symptom of virakti means he is progressing towards the stage of bhava. Okay, which is the advanced stage of devotion. Okay, when you get this, see, the only thing you need to know is when you're progressing in bhakti means you're losing interest in all these material attachments, material desires. They're coming down, coming down, coming down. And you're developing an attraction to Krishna. And you're developing virakti. So you can just test yourself whether you're getting virakti. Virakti means I'm not interested in material things. Okay. So next, so this is about deity serving. That is why deity is very important. Okay. So we develop virakti. I mean, like when you start doing deity service, what happens? We get attracted to Krishna. When we get attracted to Krishna, our interest in material things disappears, leading us to bhava bhakti. Okay. So that is the first thing. So that is why deity serving is very important for us. So next, second is hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So Rupa Goswami again will quote directly from the purport what Rupa Goswami says. He says, "My dear foolish friend, I think that you have already heard some of the auspicious Srimad Bhagavatam, which decries seeking the results of fruitive activities, economic development and liberation. I think that now it is certain that gradually the verses of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam describing the pastimes of the Lord will enter your ears and go into your heart." Okay, so here what is Rupa Goswami trying to say? How one should approach the Srimad Bhagavatam, especially the 10th canto, which contains the intimate pastimes of Krishna with Radha and the gopis. So all of us know, right? The 10th canto is all about Krishna, right? It deals about the pastimes of Krishna, Radha and Krishna and the gopis. Okay. So what is Rupa Goswami saying? That he's saying that only if you first hear all the 9 cantos, first 9 cantos, which tell us that we have to be averse to material goals. See, when you read the first 9 chapters, you will understand the greatness of Krishna. See, we generally know God is great, but we really don't know how great God is. But when we read the cantos, first 9 cantos, we understand the supreme position of Krishna. Okay, then we don't judge. So once we understand his greatness, and one more thing is like when we read the first 9 cantos, we get, what do you say? We are no more interested in all these material goals. Right, we become more interested in Krishna. So by the time we finish all these first 9 cantos and we enter the 10th canto, then we start relishing the pastimes of Krishna. Because now we know Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We know how great Krishna is by hearing all the first 9 cantos, reading or hearing, we come to know about Krishna, how great Krishna is, the cause of all causes. Nothing can happen without Krishna. Even the living beings, the demigods are dependent on Krishna. Prakriti is dependent on Krishna. So everything is like dependent on Krishna. So Krishna is so great, we understand. That is one thing. And second thing is we become, because we get attracted to Krishna, we get averse to material goals. We are no more interested in money, wealth. We are not interested in family members. and we are not interested in what name, fame, everything. So by reading from first to the ninth canto, we develop these qualities, and then once we come to the 10th canto, then we start relishing the nectar of Krishna's pastimes. So that is why it is a must. We have to read Srimad Bhagavatam right from the first canto in order till the ninth canto, and then only enter into the 10th canto, so that we can relish the relish Krishna's pastimes. But if you directly enter into the 10th canto, that is wrong, because the main reason is why you can't directly enter into the 10th canto is it requires qualification. See, the 10th canto, it describes very intimate pastimes like Rasa Leela and all such things about the gopis, right? So if someone still has material desires, they might misunderstand these pastimes. They will think that the Rasa Leela is bit like a hero and a heroine. Hero is running behind the heroine. They will think from the materialistic point of view. They'll think the Rasa Leela is like that. So, in order not to misunderstand these pastimes, we have to hear philosophy from the first 9 cantos. So we have to understand that they gopis are devotees of Lord Krishna. This is Krishna's way of reciprocation with the devotees. Okay, it is not out of lust, it is out of love. Lust is different, love is different. In the material world, hero and heroine or a boyfriend and a girlfriend, that is lust. That is bodily attraction. But the relation between the gopis and Krishna is pure love. Okay, the pure devotees of Krishna. Okay, so when we hear the philosophy from the first 9 cantos, and by slowly hearing, purification takes place. See, all these 9 cantos you start hearing, and by the time you come to the ninth, you finish ninth canto, and slowly purification takes place, and you're purified, and then you develop detachment and devotion. So you start slowly losing interest in all these material activities, and you develop devotion to Krishna. So when you come to the 10th canto, then you feel you start relishing Krishna's pastimes, the confidential pastimes. Okay, so the Bhagavatam is purely about devotion. Okay, it's not something about material desires or something. So the Bhagavatam is purely about devotion. So one must approach Bhagavatam with renunciation and sincerity. So when you hear Srimad Bhagavatam, your heart becomes purified. Okay, and then the pastimes of Krishna naturally become sweet and understandable. So here, see, again we see they are saying foolish friend heard the Srimad Bhagavatam and will deride 4 goals of life, right? So what does this mean? So here they're saying, so when you hear Srimad Bhagavatam, see, when a person hears Srimad Bhagavatam, it guides the soul towards the real goal of life. That's why we keep on saying, read the Srimad Bhagavatam, hear Srimad Bhagavatam continuously every day. So that is like food for the soul. Okay, so it guides the soul towards the real goal of life. And in the Rupa Goswami says, right, foolish friend, he chooses 4 goals. So foolish friend here means what? An ordinary material person. Rupa Goswami is calling foolish friend. Okay, so an ordinary person, what does he think his goal of life is? The 4 purusharthas, right? Dharma, artha, kama, moksha. That is what he looks for. An ordinary materialistic person or a foolish friend, according to Rupa Goswami, they look, their goal of life is these 4 purusharthas: dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So dharma means what? Doing our religious prescribed duties. Artha means what? Economic development, earning money. Kama means whatever desires we have, sense enjoyment. Moksha means what? Liberation from this material world. So these are the 4 pillars or goals of material life. But a devotee rejects them indirectly. See, a devotee who hears Bhagavatam gradually rejects even these four goals, including moksha, because pure devotion to Krishna is higher than them. See, devotee, he is not even bothered. A pure devotee is not even bothered about liberation. He is again ready to take birth, provided he is given devotional service to Krishna. Because he wants to serve Krishna. That is his goal. Wherever he is, be it in hell or heaven or Vaikuntha or Goloka, wherever he is ready to take birth. But only condition is, wherever he is, he wants to serve Krishna. So that is the main criteria. So for him, liberation is not the final thing. So he even neglects the liberation. It is not at all important for him. For him, only pure devotion to Krishna is the highest. He is ready to take birth again. No problem. He doesn't want to be liberated. The only condition is he wants to always do devotional service, to pure devotional service to Krishna. And here they're saying moksha laguta krit. So in devotion, that's what devotees, they don't even care for liberation. Liberation becomes insignificant. So moksha means what? Liberation. Lagu means what? Lagu means very small. Laguta means very small. Akrit means what? It makes. So moksha lagutakrit means liberation appears very small or insignificant when compared to bhakti. Okay, that is moksha lagutakrit. We read, I hope all of you remember, this is moksha lagutakrit is one of the characteristics of pure devotional service. Okay, so even liberation becomes very insignificant in front of bhakti. And they're saying symptoms of bhava stage. So when a devotee, he reaches the bhava stage of devotion, liberation is no longer desired. So the devotee only wants to do loving service to Krishna. Okay, so this is a symptom of bhava. He is no longer seeking for liberation. He only wants to do loving service to Krishna. Okay, so hearing Srimad Bhagavatam gradually makes a devotee reject the four goals of life. Okay, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So even liberation also, because pure devotion to Krishna is higher. So our fifth goal is what? Pure devotion to Krishna, not the four goals. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So our fifth goal is serving Krishna, pure devotional service to Krishna. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So that is association with advanced devotees. Very powerful. So we always have to be in the association of sincere devotees, advanced devotees who encourage us in progressing spiritually. Okay, so association with advanced devotees. So when a person comes in contact with highly advanced devotee of Krishna, spiritual feelings awaken very quickly. See, the advanced devotee, he constantly remembers Krishna, and because he constantly remembers Krishna, he inspires others to do the same. Because he's always in trying to remember Krishna, so he will want others also to do the same thing, right? So he inspires others also to do the same thing. And what are the symptoms we see in such devotees? So because of such deep love for Krishna, the devotee, he will show like all the symptoms of bhava, like tears in the eyes, shivering of the body. Okay, so these are natural symptoms of bhava, deep spiritual emotion. So tears in the eyes, we were saying, right? See, I'll just give you an example of where our Guru Maharaj, Srila Jayapataka Swami Guru Maharaj, actually Nitai Sevni Mataji was sharing this pastime. Actually, once when Guru Maharaj, he came to Vizag, where Nitai Sevni Mataji, she is the temple president over there. So Guru Maharaj came there, and you all know that Guru Maharaj is in a wheelchair, he can't walk. So he came in the wheelchair, and he came to the altar, and the altar puja was going on. So he was standing. I mean, like that aarti plate is there. He was doing aarti like this to the deities. So he was doing like that, and he was crying. So one of the what do you say, the devotees who come to the temple, she saw Guru Maharaj crying, and she told Nitai Sevni Mataji, Guru Maharaj is crying, maybe because he is feeling that he's not able to walk, his legs are a problem, he's not able to walk, that's why he's crying. Then Nitai Sevni Mataji, she got so angry. She was like, they are pure devotees. They don't cry for such material things. They are crying seeing the deities. There is some spiritual bonding between Guru Maharaj and the deities. They are talking. So they are pure devotees. They talk to the deities. So when they talk to the deities, in that ecstasy, tears come from their eyes. It's not, they don't cry for material things. They cry spiritually. That's ecstasy. Out of ecstasy, they cry when they connect with the deities. So Mataji told her, see, they don't cry for such things, such meager things. They have those ecstatic emotions when they're connecting with the deities. So normal people, they don't understand these symptoms. So these are the symptoms that pure devotees experience, ecstatic symptoms like tears coming in their eyes. And one time Guru Maharaj, he was so immersed in the deities that he was giving aarti. When you know, right, when the aarti plate, for a long time, if you keep on giving the whole plate, it gets heated up. It burns your hand. But still, Guru Maharaj was he was turning that aarti plate round and round, and his hand was burning. He didn't even realize. Then the devotees took the plate, snatched the plate from Guru Maharaj's hand. His hand actually burnt where he was catching. So the pure devotees in that ecstasy, they don't realize what is happening to their material body. Okay, so these are the symptoms of bhava.
Mataji, can I ask you something?
Yes, please, Mataji.
Mataji, I have seen few people, like, when you enter the spiritual places, especially, I've seen the moment they enter into the Garbhagudi or having a darshan, tears suddenly come out. Is it because they're connected to the Lord? Because of that, the tears will come out immediate instant. They'll be talking something else. The moment they get in, and when they're having darshan, suddenly we can see tears like rolling out from the eyes.
It really depends, Mataji. If they are spiritually connected, we can say that they are connected to the deity, because not everybody can be connected to God, because we are so materially connected. We can't get tears. I mean, like devotees who have been practicing for a long time, maybe they can, because they connect with Krishna, because they have been doing devotional service to Krishna by chanting, reading, they know about Krishna through the Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. And then when they develop that bonding, maybe because of that attachment, maybe tears may come. Otherwise, if they are material persons having material desires, suddenly tears are appearing. It is, I mean, I don't think that is those are the out of ecstasy.
Okay.
Yeah, only when you develop that attachment with Krishna, when you understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you start reading about Krishna, you start hearing, you do chanting, you do start doing devotional service to Krishna, and then a bond appears between you and Krishna. So then when you go to the temple, then maybe when you see the deity of Krishna, then maybe there is a chance that because of your connection, your sadhana with Krishna, tears may appear.
Okay, Mataji.
Yeah. Thank you, Mataji. Okay. So now, and these people, they experience intense eagerness to meet Krishna. So after experiencing Krishna's presence, the devotees develop strong eagerness to see and serve him again. So these pure devotees, they have no other goal. They're so much, enthusiastic Their whole mind is on Krishna. So their whole life is dedicated to Krishna. So it's like they always want to do something for Krishna. So they feel restless. So they always want. They have this strong eagerness to see and serve Krishna again. So they feel restless. So they don't feel like being in the ordinary life. It's like you see Prabhupada, Guru Maharaj, they've given up their whole life to Krishna, right? So they don't feel interested in all these worldly pleasures and all these things. They don't have any material desires. And their only goal is they want to please Krishna. Okay, if they don't do something for Krishna, they feel restless. Okay, that's why they don't want to be in this ordinary material life, and they always want to be near Krishna. Okay, so this is the third one. So they have this intense eagerness to meet Krishna. Okay, and next is Virakti, as we've told, like detachment from material life. So this is another symptom of bhava. Virakti, we've seen in the earlier this thing, right? So it meaning, what is Virakti meaning? Indifference to material enjoyment. So the devotee, he loses interest in worldly pleasures because the taste for Krishna is much higher. Now he has developed that taste for Krishna. So when you develop a higher taste, you lose a taste for lower items. So you lose taste for all these material desires, material attachments when you get a higher taste. Okay. And next, avyartha kalatvam. So they don't means avyartha kalatvam means what? Not wasting even a moment. So the devotee always uses time in devotional activities such as hearing, chanting, remembering, and serving Krishna. He does not waste a moment also. His whole life is dedicated for Krishna. Okay, so association also plays a very, very vital role. So an association with pure and sincere devotees. Pure devotees and sincere devotees we have to associate. Like we want to progress spiritually, right? All of us really want to progress spiritually. So because like how in a hospital, different stages of patients are there. Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. So like that in bhakti also, there'll be stage 1, stage 2, like neophytes, freshers, mediocre, pure devotees. So we should try to associate with devotees, sincere devotees or pure devotees who can boost our bhakti. So we select such devotees, we go to them, we talk to them so that we can increase our bhakti. So we associate not with normal neophytes who bring us down in bhakti, who talk about movies, politics, all these material things and bring our bhakti down. That anyway we do materially. Why when we go to the temple, why again we should talk the same things over there? Right? So we go to the temple or when we are in the association of devotees, we associate, we go there to recharge, right? To build our spiritual life. So we go to the temple, we associate with such sincere devotees who can boost our spirituality. Okay, we need to recharge for the whole of the life, right? So we talk with such devotees, we spend our time with such devotees who activate our spiritual life. Okay, so association, that's why is very important for us. Okay, so that is what avyartha kalam. We should not waste even a moment of our valuable life in some material activities. Use it for Krishna. Okay, so you either hear about Krishna, read about Krishna, chant about Krishna, do devotional service to Krishna, whatever you do, but do it for Krishna. Even you're doing your job, do it for Krishna. You're cooking, cook for Krishna, or mopping, do for Krishna. Cleaning the dishes, do for Krishna. Because we need to offer whatever we have cooked to Krishna, so we have to clean the utensils. So do it for Krishna. So everything you convert it for Krishna. So everything becomes like, see, that's why Krishna is Prabhupada named it as Krishna consciousness. He didn't say Krishna, right? So it's all about consciousness. See, some people, they may not be able to go to Vrindavan, right? Not everybody is so privilege to go to Vrindavan, right? So you can think about Vrindavan sitting where you are. Then your heart is in Vrindavan. It's like you have visited Vrindavan. So you can visually memorize going to Yamuna over there, or Radha Madan Mohan, visiting the deities of Radha Madan Mohan, Radha Govind ji, Radha Gopinath ji. So you can Radha Raman ji. So you can visualize all these, like you have gone there. It's like you're spiritually in Vrindavan over there. Your heart is in Vrindavan. That is the main thing. Your consciousness is important. It's not that you're physically in Vrindavan. Okay, if you can go, that is well and good. But if you're not able to go, it's your consciousness that plays a vital role. If you are able to think, if you're sitting here and if you're able to think about Vrindavan, you are in Vrindavan. But if you physically are in Vrindavan and you're thinking about, oh, has my colleague, did he complete the office work? If you're thinking about this particular place, staying in Vrindavan, then what is the use of being in Vrindavan? There's no use like that, right? But if you stay here and your consciousness here is in Vrindavan, it's like you're in Vrindavan. Okay, so it's basically the consciousness that is very important. Put your consciousness on Krishna. Whatever you're doing, just think about Krishna. That smaran of Krishna is very important. So that's why, whatever you do, when you're chanting, you remember Krishna. You read or hear the pastimes of Krishna. So all that is smaran. So when you're brushing your teeth, remember Krishna, or chant the Hare Krishna mantra, or remember some Leela of Krishna. Whatever it is, just try to remember Krishna. That's it. Okay. So now let's go to the fourth one, Harinama Sankirtana. So Harinama Sankirtana means what? Chanting and glorifying the holy names of Krishna together. So when devotee chants sincerely, the sound vibration directly touches the heart. So one of the most potent tools to purify our heart is chanting. The best, Prabhupada says, for Kali Yuga is chanting. So chanting directly touches the heart. It purifies the heart. One of the easiest, and it sounds easy, but it's not so easy. Everybody says just chant and be happy. So we have to, because the mind keeps wandering, we have to bring it back. Again, it wanders, bring it back. Okay. So if we can do that and finally practice such a way that it settles on Krishna, then it's like our mind becomes our best friend. Otherwise, it becomes our worst enemy. Because if the mind is disturbed, it keeps us engaged in all these material things. But if the mind is steady, it means it is on Krishna. So if you chant the names of Krishna, your mind becomes steady. Okay? But if you are in all sense gratification and all other activities, then your mind becomes disturbed. Okay, so that's why the Harinam Sankirtan is like very important for us. It calms our mind and it gives peace to our mind. It keeps the mind steady. Okay, and here they are giving an example of Narada Muni. See, Narada Muni, we always know that he carries a veena and he's traveling from one planet to the other. He sings the glories of Krishna while playing his veena. And his kirtana is so powerful that anyone who hears it becomes spiritually inspired. So we all know that Narada Muni is a very powerful preacher and he transformed so many devotees. If you read the Srimad Bhagavatam, Dhruva Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Chitraketu, so many are there. So many, you can't name. There are so many devotees. Okay, Mrigari, the hunter, Valmiki, so many are there. We can't. So he's such a powerful preacher. Okay, and what is the effect of hearing Kirtan? See, when we hear the holy name or the Sankirtan, when it enters our heart, what happens when it enters our heart? The devotee gradually loses attraction for material enjoyment. So it's like the name of Krishna is entering into our heart. We are developing attraction to Krishna. So what happens when we develop attraction for Krishna? Obviously, we lose interest for material enjoyment. So the mind becomes purified and it becomes absorbed in Krishna. So then what happens? As a result, virakti, detachment. Okay, virakti means what? Detachment from material pleasures. Okay, so this is one of the symptoms of bhava, right? So by hearing and chanting Krishna's holy name, like the Kirtana of Narada Muni, a person becomes detached from material life and develops deeper devotion. That is bhava bhakti. Okay, so this is all these, make you move towards bhava bhakti. Okay, and the last one is Mathura Mandal. So Mathura Mandal means what? It's the sacred spiritual area around Mathura. So where many pastimes of Krishna took place. So this Mathura Mandal means it includes Vrindavan and the holy banks of the Yamuna river. Okay, and it is about 84 square miles. And this whole Mathura Mandal is filled with forests, gardens, Kadamba trees, and the Yamuna river where Krishna performed his divine pastimes. Okay, and what is the spiritual significance of living? I mean, of Mathura. That if you are living in Mathura, actually, see the holy area of Mathura and Vrindavan is spiritually special because it is directly connected with the pastimes of Krishna. So devotees living there constantly remember Krishna. See, if you go to Vrindavan, Vrindavan or Mathura, they don't carry a bead bag like us. Constantly, they are not chanting, or they're not reading Srimad Bhagavatam, or they're not hearing the speeches of senior Vaishnavas. Right? They don't do all this. It is they are right from day one. They are devotees of Krishna. It is there in their blood. Even when they are working, they sing bhajans of Krishna. Whatever they are doing, even when they're sweeping, they're mopping, they sing bhajans of Krishna. Everything, their mind is always on Krishna. They don't chant specifically on their 16 rounds, specifically on the beats. They don't have to chant. Right from morning till night, their consciousness is totally on Krishna. That's why they say when you go to Vrindavan, you must eat the rotis that are made from the Brajavasis. You should do madhukari, it seems. You should do madhukari, you should beg from them. Please give me some roti. It's so purifying if you have from a Brajavasi, prasadam from Brajavasis. Okay, they're so pure. They don't do any sadhana like us. They're totally like right from birth, they are devotees of Krishna. They love Krishna so much. Okay. So devotees living there, they constantly remember Krishna. And here they say that remembering Krishna on the bank on the Yamuna. So devotees, they remember Krishna standing on the banks of Yamuna river. So we always visualize this, right? If Krishna is in Vrindavan, he's there on the banks of the Yamuna river. So we can see forest groves, kunjas we say, right? Kunja means groves, yeah, with birds chirping and all trees around. Okay, such remembrance naturally gives spiritual happiness and bliss. So we can imagine, right, on the bank of Yamuna river, Krishna is with the gopas and the gopis, and their birds, their trees full of fruits, flowers. So imagining all this, like Krishna is there with Radharani and in the Kunja, it's like just imagining that itself is like with the peacocks, cows, and everything. It looks so like to even visualize. It gives so much of happiness and bliss, right? So like that. And then here they're saying, even just remembering Vrindavan awakens bhava. Just remembering, like I said, right? Consciousness. So you are here and you remember about Vrindavan. Okay, that itself awakens bhava bhakti, it seems. So you are here in your place and then you are just remembering Vrindavan. That awakens bhava bhakti. So Prabhupada, he explains that even remembering Vrindavan can awaken bhava bhakti. So if just simple remembrance can make us, get us into bhava bhakti, then actually if you're living there, what is the effect of that? How powerful it is? how much more powerful it is for our spiritual advancement. So just by remembering about Vrindavan, I mean, like we are blessed with Bhava Bhakti. What about people who are staying there? How much more powerful it is? How much more fast they will advance, right? So that's what Prabhupada is saying here. Okay, and what happens later? Mental realization of one's Swarupa Siddhi. Okay, so when you stay there, what happens? At the advanced stage, a devotee begins to understand their eternal spiritual identity in relationship with Krishna. So slowly, you know, when you stay with the devotees over there, you you get to know your eternal relationship with Krishna. Okay, in the stage of Bhava Bhakti, you come to know your relationship, like whether you're a peacock, you're a gopa, you're a gopi. Through your spiritual master, when you're in the association of your devotees, you come to understand, you get the realization. Okay, so this realization appears internally in the mind and heart at first. Okay, and then full realization in the bhava stage. So when a devotee reaches bhava bhakti, the stage we just saw the 9 stages, right? The stage just before pure love of God is called bhava bhakti. Okay, so then the spiritual identity becomes clearly realized. Means his Swarupa Siddhi. Like what is he in Vrindavan? Is he like a cow or a peacock or a gopi or a gopa or what? That is realized in the bhava stage. So he gets that full realization. His Swarupa Siddhi becomes clearly realized. Okay. So here living in or remembering the holy land of Mathura and Vrindavan helps devotees constantly remember Krishna. See, everything in Vrindavan, when you go, I mean, if you go to Vrindavan, all of you must have experienced, like every place connects to Krishna. The dust connects to Krishna. The trees connect to Krishna. The Yamuna river connects to Krishna. So everything that you see connects to Krishna. Whatever you see in Vrindavan, automatically you connect to Krishna. So there is constant remembrance of Krishna over there. You see the Vrajvasis there, no, there's no doubt. They're always singing bhajans of Krishna. So everything gives you clear remembrance of Krishna over there. So constantly you remember Krishna if you stay in Vrajamandal. Okay, so this remembrance gradually awakens Bhava Bhakti. So when you're always staying in the association of devotees who are always reminding us of Krishna, wherever you go, whatever you see, everything is about Krishna, then what happens? That remembrance gradually awakens Bhava Bhakti. Obviously, you start developing love for Krishna, right? Everybody you see, wherever you see it is Krishna, whoever you see, they talk about Krishna. So everything is smaran of Krishna. So you develop love, initial love for Krishna. That is called Bhava Bhakti. And that leads to realization of one's eternal spiritual identity, our Swarupa Siddhi. We come to know of a real spiritual eternal identity. Okay, so these are the 5 potent forms of devotional service that lead us to Bhava Bhakti. Okay, and in the 6th, what is Prabhupada saying? See, Prabhupada, he says that by practicing all these 5 devotional activities, they help us awaken Bhava Bhakti. Okay, so what is that? Lavish deity worship. See, nowhere do we see, I mean, like such deity decorations that you see in ISKCON. The deities are there with ornaments, with gorgeous dresses, flowers. They're so lavishly decorated, so beautiful that they attract the mind of people. They just feel like looking at the deities. Okay, their deities are, they're taken care with great care. Cleanliness is given importance, decoration, and the offerings, bhoga is also like not normal bhoga. Okay, so this helps devotees remember Krishna constantly and develop personal service to him. Okay, through deity, lavish. deity worship. And daily Srimad Bhagavatam class, Prabhupada, that's why he's made this system happen every day. If you see in any ISKCON temple, the first thing that happens is the Mangal Arati happens. And then after the Mangal Arati, there is a process. See, actually now in ISKCON Mangaluru, we follow, like the same process, like the Mangal Arati happens at 4:30. If all of you are interested, you can please join at 4:30 every day. 4:30 to 5:15, the Mangal Arati happens. Okay. So that Mangal Arati is there. After the Mangal Arati happens at 5:15 to 7:15, we do our chanting. And then after that, there is this Srimad Bhagavatam class that is given every day by our very Namanishta Das Prabhuji, the temple president of ISKCON Mangaluru. Wonderful class Prabhuji gives. So we can listen to that. So Prabhupada has made this daily practice of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so regular hearing from Srimad Bhagavatam, it purifies the mind, because we are hearing about Krishna, right? So Krishna is entering our heart. So it purifies the mind and gives proper understanding of Krishna, his devotees, and devotional service. And third, what Prabhupada introduced, and now you see ISKCON is there everywhere. So you can get association of devotees anywhere. Any remote village also you go, ISKCON is there. You name it, it is there. ISKCON is there. So Prabhupada gives so much importance to association of devotees. Now, wherever you go, you can't say that there is no association of devotees. It is there everywhere. Okay, so when you're in association with sincere devotees, it strengthens your faith and enthusiasm in bhakti. Okay, so when you're in such devotee association, you learn how to serve Krishna properly. Like through the devotees only we learn all this, right? Otherwise, how do we know what do we have? How do we serve Krishna? What to do? Everything we don't know. So we see the devotees in the association of devotees and we try to imitate them, right? Okay, so we serve Krishna through association with devotees. And Nama Sankirtana, morning and evening. So chanting and singing holy names, especially the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. What happens when you chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra? It purifies the heart and awakens love for Krishna. And fifth is yearly festivals in Mayapur and Vrindavan. So large festivals in holy places, like you must have seen online at least, in like Mayapur and Vrindavan, they increase enthusiasm. When such big festivals are done, like it increases our enthusiasm and the remembrance of Lord, and awakens love for Krishna. So when we do all these Janmashtami, big festivals, so we all come together and celebrate together. So it it increases our enthusiasm. It improves our remembrance of the Lord, right? In the association of many devotees. Okay, so that is the main reason. See, by organizing these 5 practices, Srila Prabhupada, he created a powerful environment for powerful environment for spiritual advancement. Okay, so because of these activities, the devotees constantly engage in hearing, chanting, worshipping, and association. So that's why ISKCON is, it becomes, it's such a strong place for awakening Bhava Bhakti. Okay, there is nothing less. So you just have to stick to the boat of ISKCON. Don't try to jump. See, if the waves are so big, don't worry. Just sit in the boat. Don't jump out of the boat of ISKCON. The boat will safely take you to Goloka Vrindavan. But if you jump out of the boat, nobody can save you. Okay, whatever storms are coming, whatever difficulties are coming, but still just stay in the boat of ISKCON. Don't jump out of the boat. The boat will safely take you to Goloka Vrindavan. Okay, so Prabhupada has given us such a beautiful, ISKCON. ISKCON is actually just Prabhupada's body. If you leave ISKCON, it means you're leaving the association of Prabhupada. Okay, so always stay in the association of Prabhupada by serving his mission, like how all of us have through Prabhupada, all of us have got to know about what we are. Otherwise, earlier we were thinking that we are bodies, and our main goal is to enjoy comfort, earn money, just staying comfortable in this body, everything for this body. So we didn't even know that we were soul. Because of Prabhupada, at the ripe age of 70, nowadays 60-50 people think of retiring and enjoying life. Prabhupada, at the ripe age of 70, he went to a place where he doesn't know anything. He didn't have any money. He didn't have anything to eat. He didn't have a place to stay. He didn't know anybody. He struggled so much for us. What was the need for him to do all that? He was happily staying in Vrindavan. He was doing his bhajan. What was the necessity for him to come? He just came for all of us. He went through so many hardships just for us. So can't we just repay him back by what? He just wants this Krishna consciousness to be spread to everybody. Like he wants everybody to enjoy that eternal bliss with Krishna. He doesn't want everybody to suffer here. He knows that everybody is suffering because they forgot Krishna. So that's what Prabhupada wants to give a Krishna to everybody. So because we do everything for our sense gratification, when we do anything for our sense gratification, what happens? We get karma, right? So we get good or bad karma for which we have to come back again to this material world and suffer again. But when we do things to please Krishna, it becomes a karma, right? So there's no karma. There's no reason we'll have to come back to this material world. So we'll go back to Goloka. Right? So that's why we should try to give Krishna to everybody, because we know the importance, because we got Krishna in our life. So we want someone else also, because we know we are suffering here. But when we got Krishna, we can understand what is the difference that it made to our life. So we try to give Krishna to everybody. Okay? So that's what ISKCON is all about. Prabhupada has given us such a beautiful movement, and we are proud to be part of ISKCON. Such a big sampradaya. It's just an honor for all of us. So thank you so much, dear devotees. Please let me know if you have